The coffee hits the counter hard. Hot, no lid, sloshing over the rim, soaking into the sleeve of a man in a gray hoodie, and he doesn't pull his arm back. Not a word. Not a flinch. Behind him, two people behind the counter laugh. The kind of laughter that has nothing to do with anything funny. He sits down in the booth closest to the counter. Sneakers peeling at the toe. An old phone face down on the table. And in his jacket pocket, pressed flat against his heart, a laminated photograph nobody in this room has ever seen. The bell over the door chimes again. A small boy puts his face down, into his folded arms. On the wall, 3 feet away, a framed photograph hangs crooked. Dust thick across the glass, the kind that doesn't gather in a week. The man pulls out a small notebook. Uncaps the pen. Writes 2 words. 5:14 in the morning. Columbus, Ohio. The house sits behind a row of oak trees. Long driveway. Gravel crunching under nothing but wind, because nobody's walking on it yet. Not this early. A pale blue guest house. Sagging porch. Garden that needs weeding, and has needed it for weeks. Nothing about the place says money. Nothing about it says anything at all. Which is the point. Inside, a man stands barefoot in the kitchen. Tall. Broad through the shoulders. The kind of frame that fills a doorway, without meaning to. He pours coffee into a chipped mug. World's okayest cook, the mug says, in letters that used to be black, and are fading now, gray, like everything fades, if you hold onto it long enough. His mother gave him that mug. 11 years ago. A joke between them, back when jokes were still easy. The handle's cracked. Has been for years. He never replaced it. Because some things you don't replace. You just learn to hold them differently. His name is Holt Weller. 46 years old. Owner of 62 restaurants. Net worth that would make most men in this neighborhood faint, if they knew it. $90 million, give or take a bad quarter. This morning he's wearing a gray hoodie. Faded jeans. Sneakers with the sole peeling at the toe, the kind of shoe you'd expect on a man heading to the laundromat. Not a man who signs off on payroll for 4,000 employees. No watch. No ring. No chain around his neck to tell the world what he's worth. Just a man. A cup of coffee. And a silence, so complete you can hear the refrigerator hum, from across the room. He sits at the kitchen table. Opens his phone, an old Android, scratched up, the kind he keeps specifically for mornings like this one. He scrolls. Yelp reviews. Weller's Table Diner, location 14. Westerville, Ohio. Suburban street. Mixed income neighborhood. 3 stars. 3 stars. That number sits wrong in his chest. Sits there like a stone he swallowed by accident. Because his mother built this company on the idea that 3 stars was a failure. Not a catastrophe. Not a scandal. Just a quiet failure, the kind that doesn't scream at you, the kind that just sits there getting worse, while nobody's looking. 1 review. Food was fine. Staff was rude. Felt like they didn't want me there. Another. Great pancakes. But the cashier acted like I was bothering her. He reads them twice. Sets the phone face down on the table like it did something wrong. Then he reaches into the kitchen drawer. The one that sticks. He pulls out a photograph, laminated, corners soft from years of handling. A woman in her 50s. Standing in front of a tiny storefront. Hand-painted sign. Weller's Table, it says, in letters she painted herself, because she couldn't afford a sign shop. Flour-dusted apron. The widest smile you've ever seen on a human face. Vera Weller. His mother. She opened this place in 1989. $6,000. A loan from a bank that almost said no. And one idea, stubborn as anything, that a plate of food could be an act of dignity, if you served it right. Everyone eats equal at Weller's table. Printed on every menu. Every location. To this day. She's been gone 3 years now. Pancreatic cancer. Fast, once it started. Quiet, the way she was quiet about most things that mattered. Before she died, Holt made her a promise. He'd visit every location. Not as the man in the tailored suit, whose photo hangs in the corporate lobby. As a nobody. A regular. Somebody easy to overlook. He wanted to see what his people did, when nobody important was watching. Because that's the only version of a company that's real. The version that shows up, when the cameras are off. He thinks about her hands sometimes. Still, even now, 3 years later. The way they looked at the end, thin, translucent almost, the veins standing up blue against skin, that had gone the color of old paper. She used to say her hands told the story of the business better than any ledger ever could. Flour burns. A scar on the left thumb, from a mandolin slicer in 1994. Calluses that never fully softened even, after she stopped working the line herself, and started working a desk instead. He remembers holding those hands in a hospital room, that smelled like antiseptic, and wilted flowers, and he remembers thinking, even then, even in the middle of losing her, that some part of him was terrified of what the company would become once she wasn't the one walking the floors anymore. He'd built spreadsheets. Hired consultants. Expanded from 12 locations to 62 in 8 years, a growth curve, that made investors salivate, and made Vera, in her final years, quietly uneasy in a way she never fully explained. You can't manage what you don't watch, Holt, she told him once, near the end. Numbers lie by omission. People only lie by choice. He hadn't fully understood it then. He tucks the photo into his jacket pocket. Grabs his keys. Today's location 14th turn. He drives the long way. Not because he needs to, the GPS on his phone would take him there 20 minutes faster on the highway, but because the long way passes, through the neighborhood, where he grew up, 4 blocks from, where his mother's very first location used to stand, before the building was torn down for a CVS. He slows the Civic, as he passes the empty lot. Habit. He does this every time he's in this part of the city, whether the trip calls for it or not. There's nothing there now. Just asphalt and a drive-through lane, and a sign advertising flu shots. But he remembers the smell of that first kitchen. Remembers his mother's voice cutting, through the clatter of a Saturday rush, calling out orders in a rhythm, that felt, even to an 8-year-old, like music. Remembers sitting on an overturned milk crate in the back hallway doing homework, because there was nowhere else for him to be, because there was no money for a sitter, because his mother worked doubles most weeks just to keep the lights on. He drives on. The diner sits on a corner lot, wedged between a nail salon and a dry cleaner, the kind of unremarkable real estate that could be anywhere in America, and somehow is. Tuesday. 11:45 in the morning. Pre-lunch window. Busy enough that people won't notice a stranger. Quiet enough that a stranger can notice everything. Holt pulls into the lot in a 10-year-old Honda Civic. Another prop. His actual car, a black Mercedes S-Class, the kind of vehicle that announces a man, before he opens his mouth, stays locked in the garage on days like today. He sits in the driver's seat a moment. Just looking. Red brick exterior. Big glass windows. Weller's table's logo, a skillet, over a flame, glowing neon above the door even in daylight, because his mother liked the way it looked lit up at night, and never wanted to turn it off, not even for the electric bill. Through the glass he can see the checkered floor. Red vinyl booths. The pie case near the register, slowly rotating, showing off something, that used to be his mother's own recipe, before it became a laminated photo in a training binder nobody reads anymore. It looks right. It looks like her place. Which should feel good. Except it doesn't. Not yet. Not until he's inside. Not until he knows. He glances once more at the notebook sitting on the passenger seat. Small. Spiral-bound. The kind you'd buy at a drugstore for a grocery list. He picks it up. Slides it into his back pocket. Checks his phone one more time, a single unread text, from Greg Ellison, his regional operations director, confirming a routine check-in scheduled for later this week. Nothing that would suggest anything unusual is about to happen. Nothing that would give away that Holt Weller has been quietly conducting these visits for 3 years now, 60 locations down, 2 left, and that something about the reviews for this particular one has been sitting in his chest, since he first read them 4 days ago. He steps out. Walks toward the door. A small bell chimes, as he pushes it open, and the smell hits him first: griddle butter, fresh coffee, maple syrup, a smell so specific to his childhood, that for 1/2 second he's not 46 anymore. He's 8. Sitting on a stool at his mother's first counter, swinging his legs, because they didn't reach the floor yet. Then the moment passes. Because moments like that always pass. And he's back in his body, a grown man in a hoodie, standing in a doorway, that isn't looking at him yet. The sounds come next. Silverware against plates. A coffee machine hissing somewhere behind the counter. An elderly couple sharing pancakes in a corner booth, the kind of quiet, easy conversation that only comes after 40 years of marriage. A young mother cutting waffles into small pieces for 2 kids who can't sit still. And there, right beside the entrance, mounted in a dark wooden frame, his mother's photograph. Same apron. Same smile. Except the frame's crooked. A layer of dust sits thick across the glass, the kind of dust that doesn't happen in a week. The kind that happens over months of nobody caring enough to wipe it clean. Holt looks at it. For a long moment. Long enough that, if anyone were watching him, they'd wonder what he was thinking. His jaw tightens. He says nothing. Because there's nothing to say yet. Not until he knows the whole shape of it. Behind the counter stand 2 employees. Carla Voss. 34. Cashier. 11 months at this location. Bright smile whenever the regional manager visits. Something a lot flatter for everyone else. Tyler Briggs. 28. 5 months in. New enough to still be learning. And what he's learning from her. Who to smile at. Who to rush. Who to ignore. Who to make feel like they walked into the wrong building. Neither of them has ever met Holt Weller. Not really. The corporate photo shows a man in a tailored suit, clean-shaven, hair combed the way a stylist tells you it should be combed for headshots. The man standing in their doorway, hoodie, peeling sneakers, 3 days of stubble, doesn't match that photo. Doesn't match it at all. Holt steps up to the counter. What the hell, Tyler mutters. Not quiet enough. Look who just walked in. Smell something, Tyler? The smell of a slum, he says. Rotten. Decaying. Disgusting. Carla doesn't bother lowering her voice either. Every time one of them sits down, I gotta wipe the whole table after. She glances at Holt. Doesn't blink. He shouldn't be here. Get out. Laughter behind the counter. Short. Ugly. The kind of laughter that isn't really about anything funny, it's about power, about who gets to say what in a room, and who doesn't. Holt says nothing. His voice, when it finally comes, is soft. Almost too calm. Good afternoon. Can I see the menu? Carla looks him up and down. Slow. Deliberate. Like she's grading him and he's already failed. There's no room for tolerance here, buddy. Tyler snorts behind her. And the man in the gray hoodie says nothing back. No arguing. No raised voice. No walking out the door he just walked in through. He pulls out a chair. Sits down. Watches. Because that's the job today. Not to react. To see. For a moment, just a moment, something old and sharp moves through him. A version of himself, from 20 years ago, before there was money, before there was any cushion between him, and a comment like that, wants to stand up. Wants to say something, that would leave a mark. He remembers being 19, working a line cook job at a different restaurant entirely, hearing a manager say something about a customer's accent, that made his stomach turn, and saying nothing then either, because he was 19, and needed the paycheck, and didn't yet understand, that silence, in moments like that, has its own weight. He's not 19 anymore. He has 62 restaurants, and $90 million, and the ability to end two people's employment, with a single phone call. Which is exactly why he doesn't say a word. Because the version of justice that matters here isn't a man in a hoodie winning an argument at a counter. It's proof. It's patience. It's a paper trail, so complete that nobody, not a lawyer, not a judge, not a corporate PR team trying to smooth things over, can argue it away, as an isolated incident, a bad day, a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. He watches them for a long time. Whispering. Heads close together. Glancing his way, then looking away fast, the way people do, when they think they're being subtle and aren't. By listening, carefully, patiently, he starts to hear pieces of something. Fragments. Not enough yet to know what it is. Just enough to know it's there. He doesn't write anything down. Not yet. He just watches. There's a kid working the grill, through the pass-through window. Mid-20s, maybe. Black apron, hairnet, the kind of tired in his shoulders, that comes from a double shift, not a single one. He keeps glancing out at the counter. At Carla. At the man in the hoodie sitting alone. Something flickers across his face. Worry, maybe. Or guilt. Hard to tell from this distance. Holt files it away. Doesn't know his name yet. Will, before this is over. For now, he just watches him hesitate. Watches him almost say something to Carla, and then swallow it back down, the way you swallow a word that could cost you your job, if it comes out wrong. Which tells Holt something already. That whatever's happening in this building, it isn't a secret to everyone. Some people already know. They're just too scared to say it. Another customer walks in. A bell chimes. A white man in a polo shirt, mid-40s, khakis, sunglasses pushed up on his head like he's ready for a golf course, that isn't there. Tyler straightens up. Instantly. Like a switch flipped somewhere behind his sternum. Hey, welcome to Weller's. Table for one, or you grabbing something to go? Just a coffee. Coming right up. We got fresh apple crumble too. Just came out the oven. The man laughs. You're making it hard to say no. Tyler grins. Wide. Genuine, even, that's the part that stings, watching it. Because it means he's capable of it. The warmth. The service. He just chooses who gets it. That's the job, man. Holt watches from 3 feet away. Still sitting. Still waiting. Still, as far as either of them is concerned, invisible. The warmth in Tyler's voice sounds like a completely different person than the one who told him to get out 60 seconds earlier. Which is the thing about cruelty, Holt thinks. It's rarely a personality. It's a policy. Unwritten. Unofficial. But enforced all the same, shift after shift, customer after customer, until it stops even feeling like a choice to the people making it. He pulls a small notebook from his back pocket. Looks like a grocery list. Isn't one. He uncaps a pen. Writes 2 words. No greeting. Then he scans the room. The condiment station, ketchup bottle smudged, with fingerprints, an empty napkin dispenser, a mustard bottle, with dried crust caked around the cap like nobody's touched it to clean in a week. He writes it down. Booth 4, a tear in the vinyl seat, patched with peeling duct tape. Crumbs from whoever sat there last, still scattered across the table. He writes that down too. And the photograph by the entrance. Crooked. Dusty. He doesn't write that one down. That one's staying somewhere else. Somewhere in his chest, where the pen can't reach it. Finally Carla turns. Looks at him the way you'd look at a stain on the carpet you're too tired to scrub out. You still here? Yes, ma'am. I'd like to order, please. She doesn't pick up a pad. Doesn't touch the register. Just stares. Arms crossed. Weight shifted onto one hip like she's got somewhere better to be, and he's the reason she isn't there yet. What do you want? Not a question. A wall. I'll have the Vera special, please. Carla glances at Tyler. Lets out a short laugh through her nose. The Vera special. She draws it out. Fried chicken plate. Collard greens. Cornbread. The whole thing. She looks him over again. You sure about that? Yes, ma'am. That's gonna take a while. Kitchen's backed up. A shrug, careless, practiced. We got $1 menu. Might be more your speed. Holt glances past her shoulder. Through the pass-through window. 2 plates sit finished under the heat lamp, ready to go. The line cook stands there, doing nothing, wiping the same 6 inches of counter, over and over. The kitchen isn't backed up. She just doesn't want to serve him the plate that has his mother's name on it. I'll wait, he says. No rush. Carla rolls her eyes, so hard her whole head moves with it. She punches numbers into the register. Slowly. $14.50. He knows the menu. Every item on it. He built the pricing himself, years ago, at a folding table, with his mother arguing over margins until 2 a.m, her reading glasses pushed up into her hair, a calculator between them, that she never fully trusted, and always double-checked by hand anyway. The Vera special is $11.95. He says nothing. Not yet. He pulls a 20 from his pocket. Sets it on the counter. Carla takes it with 2 fingers. Pinched at the very corner. Like she doesn't want to touch the part he touched. She drops his change on the counter instead of, into his hand. Coins scatter. One rolls off the edge, hits the floor, keeps rolling toward the booth behind him. She doesn't glance down. Doesn't care. Have a seat, she says. We'll call you. Holt gathers the coins. Piece by piece. Bends down for the one on the floor. Sits in the booth closest to the counter, deliberately, carefully, within earshot of everything. He places the notebook on the table. Pen ready. And he watches. 11 minutes later, a white family walks in. Father. Mother. 2 kids, a boy around 6, a girl closer to 4. Tyler practically jogs to greet them. Hey, welcome in, guys. You hungry? The boy nods. Tyler reaches behind the counter. Pulls out the cookie jar, big glass jar, the Weller's table logo painted on the front, half full of cookies, that catch the light, through the glass. Company policy, he says. Every kid gets a free cookie. Every kid. No exceptions. Page 12, Section 3 of the Employee Handbook. One of Vera's original rules, written the year the company started, back when there was no handbook at all, just a woman, who believed a child shouldn't leave her restaurant, without something sweet in his hand. Here you go, buddy. One for your sister too. Fresh baked this morning. The parents smile. The kids light up. Normal. Warm. The way it's supposed to be. Holt watches the scene, and feels something in his chest that's almost peaceful. Almost. Because this is what his mother built. This is the thing she meant. 4 minutes later, everything changes. A black woman walks in with her son. The boy looks about 7. Bright eyes. A Batman backpack slung over one shoulder. He holds his mother's hand, and looks around the diner, with the kind of quiet excitement kids have, when a place feels a little bit special. Tyler doesn't move. No greeting. No smile. He just keeps wiping the same 6 inches of counter he's already wiped twice. The woman orders 2 sandwiches. Pays cash. Sits down. The boy's eyes drift to the other kids eating their cookies. Go wide. He tugs his mother's sleeve. Mama, can I have a cookie too? She looks toward the counter. Excuse me. Do the kids get cookies? I saw the other children got some. Tyler glances at the jar. Half full. At least a dozen visible through the glass. Golden brown. Sitting right there in plain sight, close enough that anyone standing at that counter could count them without trying. Oh, yeah, sorry. He doesn't blink. Doesn't hesitate. Those were actually the last ones. A lie. Told flat. Told easy. Told with the jar sitting 3 feet behind him, where anyone could see the truth of it. The woman pauses. She could count the cookies, from where she's standing. She knows what she's looking at. But she doesn't argue. She presses her lips together. Takes her son's hand. Sits down. The boy looks back at the jar one more time. His lip trembles. Then he puts his head down on the table. Presses his face into his folded arms. The Batman backpack slides off his shoulder, lands half on the seat, half on the floor, and nobody moves to pick it up. Holt's pen stops. He stares at the boy for a long time. His grip tightens around the notebook, until his knuckles go pale, the paper crinkling slightly under the pressure. But he stays in the booth. He keeps watching. Because if he moves now, if he says something now, it ends here. And this isn't the end. Not yet. Somewhere behind his ribs, a small, private ache opens up. Because he remembers being a kid, whose mother sometimes couldn't afford the extra dollar for a treat, remembers the particular hollowness of watching other children get something you weren't going to get, remembers his mother's hand tightening around his own, when she saw his face fall, remembers her whispering, "Someday, baby, someday we'll never have to watch anybody's face do that again. Not in our place. Not ever." He thinks about that promise now, watching a different mother's hand rest on a different boy's shoulder, and he feels the full weight of everything Vera Weller built landing on him at once, not as an inheritance, but as a debt. 20 minutes later, a white woman in her 60s approaches the counter, with a coupon. Holt recognizes it. A buy one get one flyer from last month's promotion. Expired 6 days ago. The date's printed clear, as day in the corner. Carla takes it. Scans it. Smiles. Warm. Easy. No problem at all, hon, let me apply that for you. The woman thanks her. Leaves happy. Carla even waves goodbye. Not 2 minutes later, a black man in dusty work boots, and a reflective vest steps up to the counter. Same coupon in his hand. Same flyer. Same design. Except his is still valid. 3 weeks left on it. Perfectly good. Carla holds it up like she's inspecting a counterfeit bill. Turns it over. Holds it to the light. Squints. A pause, theatrical, practiced. This isn't scanning. It's the same coupon from the website. I printed it this morning. Sir, I can't override the system. If it doesn't scan, it doesn't scan. But I just saw you take one, from the lady before. That was a different promotion. Ice. Cold and flat and final. You want to order or not? There's a line behind you. There is no line. The space behind him is empty. Completely. Not a single customer waiting. The man exhales slowly. Looks at the coupon in his hand. Folds it carefully. Puts it back in his pocket. Pays full price. Takes his bag. Leaves without another word. Holt watches him walk out. Watches the door swing shut behind him, slow, the bell giving one last soft chime. Watches through the window, as the man climbs, into a dented pickup truck, and just sits there. Staring through the windshield. Not starting the engine. Just sitting. For a long moment. The kind of moment, where a man decides how much of this he's going to let himself feel, before he has to drive home, and be fine for his family. Then the truck pulls away. Holt reaches into his jacket pocket. Under the table. Out of sight. Presses his thumb against the laminated photograph. Holds it there. The plastic is smooth. The edges soft from years of handling. He doesn't need to look at it to see it. He's memorized every crease. He looks up. At the framed photo on the wall. Vera Weller. Smiling in her flour-dusted apron. Everyone eats equal at Weller's table. His jaw tightens until it aches. He pulls out his phone. Types a message. Doesn't send it yet. Reads it back once. Twice. Then he adds one more line, and sends it, and puts the phone face down on the table. He raises his hand toward the counter. Could I get a coffee, please? Carla pours it without looking. No lid. Sets it down hard enough, that it sloshes, over the rim, pools across the counter's surface. There you go, hon. Coffee soaks into his sleeve, as he picks it up. Warm through the fabric. She doesn't apologize. Doesn't offer a napkin. Turns back to her phone. Holt wipes his sleeve, with the back of his hand. Picks up the mug. Takes a slow sip. And keeps watching. The lunch rush comes and goes. By 1:15, the diner's thinned out. The elderly couple's gone. The mother with her 2 kids is gone. Most of the booths sit empty now, napkins crumpled on plates, ketchup smears drying on tables nobody's bothered to wipe. Holt's still in his booth. Same seat. Same cold coffee. Notebook still open in front of him. Carla and Tyler stand behind the counter. The dining room's quiet enough now, that their voices carry, not because they're being loud, but because they've stopped caring, who might be listening. I'm so sick of this neighborhood, Tyler. He glances up from his phone. What now? Look around. She waves a hand at the dining room like she's shooing a fly. 5 years ago, this place was nice. Clean. Normal people came in, sat down, tipped, left. Now? A sneer curls into her voice. It's a whole different crowd. More and more of them rolling in here like they own the place. She doesn't say who them is. She doesn't need to. Tyler nods. Yeah. It's changed. Changed? A hard laugh. Ugly. That's a polite word for it. I call it ruined. Holt's pen has stopped moving. His coffee sits untouched. He doesn't look at them. Keeps his eyes on the notebook. Just listens. Because there's more coming. He can feel it, the particular rhythm of two people building up to something they've said to each other 100 times before, comfortable in the saying of it. Except before she gets to it, before the conversation turns into the thing that will end both their careers by sundown. Holt's eyes drift, almost by accident, toward the pass-through window. The line cook is there again. Watching. The same one from before, the one who kept glancing at Carla, kept almost saying something, and swallowing it back down. Their eyes meet. Just for a second. And something passes between them. Something Holt can't name yet. Recognition, maybe. Or a kind of silent apology, as if the cook is trying to say I know, I'm sorry, I can't, without saying anything at all. Then the cook looks away. Fast. Back to the grill. Back to a task that doesn't need his attention right now, but gives him somewhere else to put his eyes. Holt writes nothing down. Not this time. Because this isn't a violation he can put in a notebook. This is something else. Something quieter. A man caught between his conscience and his rent, and Holt knows that particular trap better than most people would guess, because his mother worked 3 jobs before she ever opened a diner of her own, and he remembers exactly what it costs a person to stay silent, when silence is the only thing standing between them, and losing everything. He'll come back to this. Not today. But soon. His phone buzzes, face down on the table. He turns it over. Reads the message. His assistant. Confirming. Pulling the transaction logs for location 14, the last 11 months, every register entry, every manual override, every adjustment that doesn't match a menu item. 1 hour, the message says. Maybe less. Holt looks at the screen for a long moment. Because this is the part nobody sees in the corporate photo. Not the man in the tailored suit signing checks. Not the keynote speeches about company values. This, a man in a coffee-stained hoodie, sitting alone in a booth, quietly requesting data on his own restaurant, because something in his gut told him, the second he saw that dust on his mother's photograph, that dust wasn't the only thing wrong in this building. He didn't need to hear the confession yet. He already suspected. 3 stars doesn't happen by accident. Not from good food and bad luck. 3 stars happens when something's rotting under the floorboards, slow, patient, invisible to anyone who isn't looking hard enough. And Holt Weller has spent his whole adult life learning how to look hard. He sets the phone back down. Face up this time. And waits. Behind the counter, Carla's voice drops. Just slightly. Just enough that she thinks she's being careful. She isn't. You know what I started doing about 11 months ago? Tyler leans in. What? She glances toward the dining room. Toward the empty booths. Toward the man in the hoodie, who, as far as she's concerned, has been sitting there, so long he's practically furniture. She doesn't lower her voice enough. Not nearly enough. Holt doesn't move. Doesn't breathe differently. Doesn't so much as shift his weight in the booth. But every part of him that's still, quietly, always been his mother's son, leans in. Because whatever she says next, he's going to remember every word of it. The bell above the door hasn't chimed in 10 minutes. The coffee machine sits idle behind the counter, its red light blinking on standby. Outside, a delivery truck rumbles past on the street, and for a second its shadow crosses the window, and falls across Holt's table, across the notebook, across the 2 words he wrote nearly 2 hours ago now. No greeting. He thinks about how small that phrase looks on the page. 2 words. Almost nothing. Except nothing about today has been almost nothing. He thinks about the boy, with the Batman backpack, face pressed into his folded arms. He thinks about the man in the reflective vest, sitting alone in his truck, staring through a windshield at nothing. He thinks about his mother's photograph, crooked, dusty, hanging 3 feet, from where 2 people are about to tell him, without knowing it, exactly how deep this goes. And he thinks, not for the first time today, about the promise he made her. Sitting beside her hospital bed. Her hand, thin by then, so thin, wrapped around his. Visit every location, she told him. Not as my son. Not as the man whose name is on the building. As a stranger. See what they do, when they think nobody's watching. He'd asked her why it mattered so much. And she'd said, voice barely above a whisper by then, but steady, still steady even at the end. Because a company doesn't fail in the boardroom, Holt. It fails one small cruelty at a time. In 100 different rooms. Where nobody with power is looking. He hadn't understood it then. Not fully. He'd nodded, because you nod at things like that when the person saying them doesn't have much time left, and you want to give her whatever piece you can. He understands it now. Sitting in a booth. Coffee gone cold. A photograph pressed flat under his palm in his jacket pocket, 3 inches from his heart. He understands it completely. He thinks, too, about the years between then and now. About the funeral, small and quiet, exactly the way she wanted it. About the weeks after, when the company nearly stalled out entirely, because nobody, not the board, not the executives, not even Holt himself, if he's honest, quite knew how to run 60 locations, without the woman, whose instincts had built every single one of them from nothing. About the first time he did this. Walked into a location in his old gray hoodie, expecting to feel like a fraud, expecting the staff to recognize him instantly, and put on a show. Nobody had. Nobody ever does. People see what they expect to see, and nobody expects a billionaire in peeling sneakers. That first visit had gone fine. Better than fine. A location in Cincinnati, where the manager greeted every single customer by name, and the kitchen ran like a well-oiled machine, and Holt had left, with tears in his eyes, because it felt, for one afternoon, like his mother was still alive somewhere, still watching over the thing she'd built. This is not that kind of visit. This is the kind he was afraid he'd eventually have to sit through. The kind that proves the promise wasn't sentimental. The kind that proves it was necessary. Carla's voice picks back up. Low. Almost proud. Every time one of them orders, the ones, who obviously don't belong here, I add a little something to the bill. Tyler's eyebrows lift, just slightly. Add what? A service charge. She shrugs, like it's nothing, like it's the most natural thing in the world. $1.50. Sometimes $2. Just enough that it doesn't look suspicious. Holt's hand, still resting flat on the table, near the notebook, goes very, very still. Because he already suspected. But suspecting and hearing are 2 different animals entirely. He keeps his eyes down. Keeps his breathing even. Keeps every muscle in his face arranged, into the same tired, unremarkable expression he's worn, since he sat down. But inside, somewhere behind the ribs, somewhere his mother would have recognized instantly, because she wore this exact same stillness the day she found out a supplier had been shorting her on flour for 8 months. Something in him goes cold. And sharp. And absolutely, permanently certain. This isn't a bad afternoon anymore. This is the whole reason he came. He doesn't stand up. He doesn't confront them. He doesn't do any of the things a man might do in the heat of a moment like this, because Holt Weller learned a long time ago, watching his mother run a company on 6,000 borrowed dollars, and pure stubbornness, that the loudest reaction is rarely the one that fixes anything. What fixes things is proof. What fixes things is patience. So he sits. And listens. And lets the 2 people behind the counter keep talking, keep confessing, keep handing him, piece by piece, word by word, without the faintest idea what they're doing, everything he'll need. His pen moves again. Slowly this time. Deliberately. He doesn't write down the exact number Carla just said. He doesn't need to. Numbers like that don't disappear from a man's memory. They lodge there. Permanently. Instead, he writes something else. Something smaller. Something that matters more, in the end, than any single dollar figure ever could. Confirmed. One word. Underlined once. And beneath it, in handwriting that's gone slightly unsteady, the only outward sign, however small, of everything happening underneath his calm. Not finished yet. He caps the pen. Closes the notebook. And keeps his eyes on the counter, on the two people, who still, even now, have no idea who they're talking to. No idea that the man in the peeling sneakers isn't a nobody they can dismiss, and forget about the second he walks out the door. No idea that he isn't going anywhere. Not today. Not until this building, his mother's building, her name still glowing in neon above a door two people just spent the last hour treating like a punchline, remembers exactly what it was built to be. The coffee machine clicks back to life behind the counter. Somewhere in the kitchen, a timer goes off, thin and insistent, and nobody moves to answer it. Holt Weller sits very still in his booth. A cold cup of coffee in front of him. A photograph of his mother pressed against his heart. And for the first time, since he walked through that door, since the moment two strangers looked at him, and decided, instantly, without knowing a single thing about him, exactly how little he was worth. He allows himself, just barely, the faintest trace of something, that isn't quite a smile. Because they think this is almost over. It's only just beginning. The confession keeps going. Because Carla isn't finished. Because people who've gotten away with something for 11 months don't stop mid-sentence just because they're bragging. They keep going. They can't help it. Pride does that to a person. How much you pull so far? Tyler asks. Quiet. Almost reverent. Since I started? A pause. A smile Holt can hear without seeing it. Close to $3,000. Maybe more. No way. Adds up fast, when you do it 10, 15 times a day. And nobody from corporate ever noticed? Carla laughs. Soft. Confident. The laugh of someone who's already decided she's smarter than the system built to catch her. Corporate doesn't check receipts line by line. Revenue goes up, nobody asks questions. She leans in closer. Drops her voice like she's protecting a secret instead of confessing to a crime. Besides, these people never look at their receipts anyway. They can barely count. Something in Holt's chest tightens. Not anger yet. Not exactly. Something underneath anger. Something older. Because he's heard variations of that sentence his whole life. In boardrooms dressed up as jokes. In supplier meetings dressed up as business sense. And now here, behind a counter in his mother's restaurant, dressed up as nothing at all. Just said plain. Said easy. Said like a fact of nature instead of a choice a human being makes every single time she rings up a register. $3,000 sounds small next to 90 million. He knows that. Knows the number itself isn't the crime that matters most here. What matters is the 11 months it took to build. The thousands of individual choices, made shift after shift, each one small enough to seem forgivable in isolation, each one compounding into something that isn't small anymore, isn't forgivable anymore, isn't anything but a pattern, with a name. Tyler rubs the back of his neck. I've been doing it too. Last couple months. I know. Carla's voice goes proud. Almost maternal, if you didn't know better. Taught you well. Probably pulled about 1,500 so far. See? Easy money. They'll never know. And even if somebody complains, she shrugs. Who's gonna believe them over us? She says it like a punchline. Tyler laughs. Carla laughs harder. Holt's coffee cup is frozen halfway to his mouth. He sets it down without drinking. His hand trembles slightly against the porcelain, not from fear. Never fear. Something that lives much deeper than fear, somewhere closer to grief, somewhere close to the place where you keep the people you've lost. He breathes in slow through his nose. Holds it. Lets it out through his mouth. Because he's just heard 2 of his own employees confess to stealing from his customers. Black and Latino customers. Systematically. For nearly a year. Underneath a photograph of his mother's face, 5 feet away, still crooked, still gathering dust, like even the wall itself had stopped caring. And they're laughing. Like it's a game. He thinks, for just a second, of every dollar his mother ever counted twice, before handing it to a supplier. Every late payment she agonized over. Every night she sat at that folding table, with a calculator she didn't trust, going over numbers by hand, because the business meant more to her than sleep did. She never stole a cent from anyone in her life, and she built a company on the specific, stubborn belief that nobody who walked through her doors ever should either. He thinks she would have fired them both on the spot. Wouldn't have needed a lawyer. Wouldn't have needed an audit. Would have looked Carla Voss dead in the eye, and said, "Not in my restaurant," and meant it, with every cell in her body. He isn't his mother. He doesn't have her instinct for the immediate. He has something else, patience honed, over 60 locations, over 3 years of quiet visits, over the particular discipline of a man, who learned, the hard way, that acting on anger gets you a satisfying headline, and a weak legal case, while acting on evidence gets you both. So he waits. Then Carla's eyes snap toward him. "Hey. You." Holt looks up. "You've been sitting there over an hour. You done or what?" "Still finishing my coffee." She steps out from behind the counter. Crosses the dining room. Stands directly over his booth, hands on her hips, chin tilted down, looking at him the way you'd look at gum stuck to the bottom of your shoe. "This isn't a shelter." A pause, sharp. "This isn't a library. You eat. You pay. You leave. That's how it works here." Another beat. "We need this table for actual paying customers." Holt glances around the diner. 6 booths sit empty. Dirty plates and crumpled napkins pile on 3 of them. Nobody's bussed a table since the rush ended. "Which table do you need it for?" he asks. Calm. Quiet. Almost gentle. Carla's nostrils flare. "Don't get smart with me." Tyler calls from behind the counter, not even looking up from his phone. "Come on, man. Be considerate. Other people are waiting." There are no other people. The door hasn't opened in 20 minutes. Holt looks at both of them. A long, still beat passes. Has anyone from corporate ever visited this location? Carla scoffs. Almost chokes on it. Corporate? A laugh, harsh, dismissive. Please. They don't waste their time on a place like this. She leans in, just slightly, like she's letting him in on the punchline of a joke that's been running for months. Nobody's watching. Nobody cares. Holt nods. Slowly. "I see." She walks away. He lets her go. Except before he can look back down at the receipt in front of him, before he can start doing what he came here to do, the front door chimes. Because the world doesn't stop for a man's private reckoning. It just keeps happening around him, indifferent, ordinary, one customer at a time. An elderly man walks in. White. Silver hair combed back neat, the kind of neat that comes from 60 years of the same barber. A flannel shirt tucked into slacks that are a little too formal for a diner, and a little too worn to be new. He moves slow. Deliberate. The gait of a man who's had a hip replaced, and isn't in a hurry to remind himself of it. Harold Wexler. 71 years old. Widower, 3 years now, though nobody in this restaurant knows that yet. Comes in twice a week, same booth if he can get it, orders the same thing every time, because at 71, you've earned the right to stop being surprised by your own lunch. He sits 2 booths down from Holt. Nods once, the way men of his generation nod at strangers, not friendly exactly, just acknowledging. A man is here. Another man is here. That's worth a nod. Holt nods back. And for a moment, nothing happens. Harold orders coffee. Reads a folded newspaper he brought with him, the physical kind, the kind fewer and fewer people bother carrying anymore. He thinks, watching Harold settle into his booth, with the unhurried ease of a man who has nowhere else he needs to be, about his own father, a man who left when Holt was 4, who exists in his memory mostly as an absence rather than a presence, a shape cut out of the family photographs by simple virtue of never being in them. His mother never spoke badly of him. Never spoke of him much at all, actually. Just worked. Just built. Just made sure her son grew up believing that a family could be exactly the size it needed to be, and that the people who stayed mattered more than the ones who didn't. He wonders, sometimes, what Harold Wexler's life looks like, from the inside. A widower with a folded newspaper, and a regular booth. A life built, now, around small rituals, a cup of coffee, the same seat, the particular comfort of being recognized even by strangers, who don't know your name. He'll never ask. That's not how this day works. But he notices, and noticing, Holt has learned, is its own kind of respect. A different man walks up to the counter. Different vest, different boots than the one from before, but the same posture, the same tired shoulders of somebody who's spent the morning doing something, with his hands, that this diner will never understand, or thank him for. He steps up to the counter. Coupon in hand. Same flyer. Same design. Still valid. Because apparently this isn't a one-time thing. Because apparently this is Tuesday. Because apparently every single day this counter turns into a small, quiet courtroom where the verdict's already decided, before the customer even opens his mouth. Carla holds the coupon up to the light again. The exact same motion as before. The exact same script. This isn't scanning. It's the same one from the website. I can't override the system, sir. Holt's jaw tightens. He's still watching. Still not moving. Because he needs more. Because one incident is an accident, and 11 months of incidents is a pattern, and he needs the pattern on record, needs it undeniable, needs it so airtight, that no lawyer on earth could argue it away, as a misunderstanding. But then something happens, that isn't in his notebook. Isn't in his plan. Isn't anything he expected walking through that door 2 hours ago. Harold Wexler puts his newspaper down. Excuse me. His voice isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It has the particular weight that comes from a man who's spent 71 years choosing his moments carefully, and has decided this is one of them. Carla turns. Sir, I'll be right with. I watched you take an expired coupon from a woman not 20 minutes ago. Harold folds his hands on the table. Doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't need to. Smiled the whole time. Told her no problem at all. Silence. Now this young man's holding one that's still good. 3 weeks left on it, by the look of it from here. A pause. And you're telling him it doesn't scan. Carla's mouth opens. Closes. Sir, this isn't. I'm 71 years old. Harold says it flat. Not proud. Not apologizing for it either. Just a fact, laid on the table like a hand of cards. I've been coming to this diner for 6 years. I buried my wife 3 years ago, and this was one of the only places I still came, without her, because it felt the same, sitting here, even after everything else stopped feeling the same. He looks at Carla. Doesn't blink. And I am not going to sit here and watch you treat this man different than you treated me. Not in this booth. Not while I'm breathing. The man with the coupon looks at Harold. Something crosses his face, surprise, mostly. The particular surprise of being defended by a stranger, who has absolutely nothing to gain from it. Carla's face has gone tight. Sir, with respect, this isn't your. It's exactly my business. Harold's voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. Decency stopped being a private matter a long time ago, young lady. The day you decide who gets treated like a customer, and who gets treated like a problem, that's everybody's business. Every single person in this room. Nobody says anything. The coffee machine hisses behind the counter, the only sound in the building for a long, uncomfortable stretch. Carla's hand hovers over the register. For the first time all day, something like hesitation flickers across her face. Fine, she mutters. She scans the coupon again. This time it works. Funny how that happens. There. Happy? The man in the work boots looks between her and Harold. Thank you, he says quietly. Not to Carla. To Harold. Harold just nods. Picks his newspaper back up like nothing happened, though his hands aren't quite as steady as they were a minute ago. Holt sits very still in his booth. Because he came here today expecting to be the only one paying attention. The only one keeping score. That was the whole premise of the promise he made his mother. He'd watch, he'd document, he'd be the silent judge nobody knew was in the room. Except he wasn't the only one. There was an old man, with a folded newspaper who'd been quietly watching this exact injustice happen for, who knows how many Tuesdays, and today, for reasons that belong entirely to him, decided he wasn't going to watch it happen again. Something loosens in Holt's chest. Just slightly. Because it means the world isn't as broken as this one building. It means decency didn't die. It just goes quiet sometimes. Waits. Picks its moment. He thinks of his mother's handwriting on the back of an old recipe card. Kindness isn't loud, Holt. It just shows up when it matters. He looks at Harold Wexler, a stranger he's never met, and will likely never see again, after today, and thinks, she'd have liked this man. He thinks, too, about how easy it would have been for Harold to say nothing. 71 years old. Widower. A man with every reason in the world to keep his head down, drink his coffee, read his paper, and let somebody else's problem stay somebody else's problem. Nobody would have blamed him for staying quiet. Nobody would have even noticed. That's exactly what makes it matter. But there's still the cook. The one behind the pass-through window. The one who keeps glancing out at the counter, and then away, glancing and looking away, like he's tethered to something he can't quite pull free of. Holt watches him work, through the lull between orders. Watches the way his hands move, efficient, practiced, the hands of someone who's done this job a long time, and does it well. Watches the way his eyes track Carla whenever she says something particularly cruel, the flinch that crosses his face, and disappears just as fast, folded back down, into the blank professional mask that keeps a kitchen running. His name tag says Denzel. Holt doesn't approach him. Not yet. Direct questions from a stranger in a hoodie would get nothing but silence, and rightfully so, because whatever Denzel knows, he's been carrying it carefully, quietly, for reasons that have nothing to do with cowardice and everything to do with rent, with bills, with whatever family is waiting for him at home, who depends on this paycheck arriving on time. Holt understands that particular math better than almost anyone in this building would believe, looking at his sneakers, looking at his hoodie. Because his mother did that math too. Every week, for years, before there was a company at all. Before there was anything but a folding table and a dream that felt, most nights, more like a burden than a blessing. So instead of approaching, Holt waits. He orders another coffee, pays full price this time, no complaint, just watching, and settles back into the booth like a man with nowhere else to be. It's nearly 1 o'clock when Denzel finally steps out from the kitchen. Officially it's for a supply run, a case of napkins, from the back room, something menial, something that shouldn't take longer than 90 seconds. But he detours. Just slightly. A path that brings him within a few feet of Holt's booth, close enough that, if either of them wanted to say something, this would be the moment. Neither of them says anything. Not yet. But Denzel slows. Just barely. Just long enough that it can't be entirely accidental. His eyes flick toward Holt's notebook, closed now, resting on the table, and something passes across his face that Holt recognizes instantly. Recognition isn't the right word for it. Relief is closer. The particular relief of a man who's been carrying something heavy and alone for a long time, and has just glimpsed, for the first time, the possibility that someone else might finally be carrying it too. He doesn't stop walking. He disappears into the back room. Comes out 30 seconds later, with the napkins, exactly as planned, exactly as unremarkable as it should look to anyone watching. But as he passes Holt's booth a second time, he says something. Quiet. Barely above a whisper. Pitched so precisely that only the man in the booth could possibly hear it. She's been doing it since she got here. That's all. 6 words. And then he's gone, back through the kitchen doors, back to the grill, back to the safety of pretending nothing happened. Holt doesn't move. Doesn't turn his head. Doesn't give the moment away by so much as a flicker. But inside, something shifts. Locks into place. Because now he has a timeline that matches everything else, 11 months, exactly as long as Carla's been at this location, and a witness, however reluctant, however frightened, willing to confirm it. He thinks, for a moment, about what it must have cost Denzel to say those 6 words. A man doesn't whisper a confession like that without doing the math first. Without weighing it against a mortgage, a car payment, maybe children who need shoes, before the school year starts. Without wondering, somewhere in the back of his mind, whether the stranger in the hoodie is even worth the risk. And he took it anyway. Which tells Holt something important. Something he'll carry into every decision he makes for the rest of the day. Because not everyone in this building is broken. Not everyone stopped caring the moment nobody with power was looking. Some people were just waiting for permission to say something out loud. He makes a note, not in the notebook, but somewhere further back, somewhere that doesn't get erased. Denzel. Kitchen. Knew from the start. Said nothing until today. Not out of cruelty. Out of fear. There's a difference. Holt has learned, over 46 years, that the difference matters enormously. The world runs on people who are afraid. What matters is what they do the moment fear finally loses its grip. His phone buzzes again. A new message. Longer this time. The transaction logs have come back, partial, preliminary, but already enough to make his stomach turn. Numbers. Patterns. A spike in something called miscellaneous service fee, appearing on hundreds of transactions, over the past 11 months, always during shifts staffed by 2 specific employee IDs. Never during shifts staffed by anyone else. Surgical. Deliberate. Not a mistake. Not a glitch in the system. A choice, repeated thousands of times, by 2 people, who woke up every single one of those mornings, and decided, again, to keep doing it. He scrolls slower now. Because there's something else in the data. Something that makes his jaw tighten in a way it hasn't yet today. The same charge pattern, small, surgical, targeting the same kind of transactions, has started appearing at another location. Location number 31, on the other side of the county. Beginning about a month ago. Around the same time, according to the employee roster attached to the message, a cashier who'd trained briefly at location 14 transferred there. Her name is listed at the top of the file. It isn't Carla's. It's someone who worked a handful of overlapping shifts with her 3 months back, long enough, it seems, to pick up more than just the register procedures. Someone who learned the technique here, carried it with her like a skill on a resume, and started applying it somewhere new the moment the timing lined up. Holt sets the phone down. Presses 2 fingers against his temple. Because this isn't 2 bad employees anymore. This is a method. A thing that reproduces. A rot that doesn't stay contained to the room where it started, it spreads, quietly, person to person, shift to shift, the way anything spreads, when nobody stops it in time. His mother used to say, that character is what a person does, when it costs them nothing to do otherwise. He's starting to understand, sitting in this booth, that corruption works the same way. It costs nothing, until someone decides it should. Today, it's going to cost something. He looks up. Across the diner. At the booth, where Harold Wexler sits, quietly finishing his coffee, newspaper folded neatly beside his cup, a small, ordinary man who did an extraordinary thing 20 minutes ago, and has already gone back to being ordinary again, the way decent people usually do. He looks toward the kitchen, where Denzel is back at the grill, shoulders a little less tense now, like something's been let out of him, that had been pressing down for months. And he looks toward the counter, where Carla leans against the register, scrolling her phone, entirely unaware that the last 11 months of her life have just been reduced to a spreadsheet on a stranger's screen. He thinks about his mother's photograph on the wall. Crooked. Dusty. He thinks, not for much longer. Some time passes. The diner stays quiet, the lull between lunch, and whatever comes next, and Holt uses the time the way he's used every minute, since he walked, through that door, watching, cataloging, letting the evidence build itself, without a single word from him. Then the bell chimes one more time. A young woman walks in. Early 20s. Backpack slung over one shoulder, heavy enough that it pulls her posture slightly to one side. Textbooks crammed inside, corners poking against the fabric. A university lanyard hangs around her neck, the kind of plastic ID holder every broke college student wears like a badge of honor, and exhaustion in equal measure. Her jacket is too thin for the weather outside. Her sneakers have a hole starting near the left toe, small, the kind you keep meaning to fix, and never quite get around to, because there's always something more urgent than shoes. Her name is Amara Johnson. She doesn't know this diner. Doesn't know its history, doesn't know the woman behind the counter, doesn't know that in about 90 seconds her life is about to intersect, briefly and completely by accident, with a stranger, who happens to own the building. She stands at the counter. Studies the menu board on the wall for a long time. Her lips move slightly, silently, running numbers. She reaches into her jacket pocket. Pulls out a handful of crumpled bills, and loose change. Spreads it across the counter. Counts it once. Counts it again. She's short. $1.20. Excuse me, she says softly. Could I get the soup, and half a sandwich? I'm a little short, but I could. Carla cuts her off, before she finishes the sentence. If you can't pay, you can't eat. Flat. Immediate. That's how it works. This isn't a soup kitchen, honey. Amara's face crumbles. Not dramatically. Just a small collapse, the kind that happens in the corner of someone's mouth, the kind that says this isn't the first time, and it probably won't be the last. She starts gathering her coins off the counter, one by one, fingers shaking slightly. A quarter slips. Rolls across the tile floor. She bends down to pick it up, and a textbook tumbles out of her open bag, pages splaying against the ground. Behind the register, Tyler watches from a few feet away. Arms folded. He doesn't say a word. Doesn't offer to cover the difference, $1.20, less than the tip most customers leave, without thinking about it. Doesn't look uncomfortable, doesn't look anything at all. Just watches her scramble on the floor like it's background noise. Like she's furniture rearranging itself. Holt stands up. The chair scrapes hard against the tile. The sound cuts through the quiet diner like something breaking. He walks to the counter. Reaches into his pocket. Pulls out a 20, and lays it flat, right next to Amara's scattered coins. Her meal's on me. His voice is quiet. Even. Give her whatever she wants. Carla stares at him. And give her the cookie, he adds, she should have been offered the second she walked through that door. Dead silence. Amara looks up at him. Her eyes are wet now, glassy, her chin trembling slightly, the particular fragility of someone who's been holding it together all day, and just had the one thing that might break her, be met instead with kindness. You don't have to do that, sir. I know, Holt says quietly. But someone should. He looks at Carla. Then at Tyler. Neither of them moves. Neither of them speaks. Holt nods once toward Amara. She whispers, "Thank you," barely audible, and he walks back toward his booth. He doesn't sit down. Instead he stands there a moment, one hand resting on the back of the chair, looking at the diner the way a man looks at a house he's about to sell, cataloging every crack in the foundation, every window that doesn't quite close right, every place the roof has started to let the water in. He pulls out his phone. Dials. 1 ring. 2. Greg. His voice doesn't shake. Doesn't rise. It's the same calm, even tone he's used all afternoon, and somehow that makes it worse, the stillness of a man who has already made up his mind, and is simply informing the world of a decision, not asking permission for one. I need you at location 14. Right now. A pause. Someone on the other end says something Holt doesn't bother repeating out loud. Bring the full audit team. Another beat. And call Yolanda Price. Tell her she's getting a promotion today. He hangs up. Sets the phone face down on the table. And waits. 22 minutes. That's how long it takes. Holt sits in his booth without moving. Doesn't check his phone. Doesn't fidget. Doesn't glance toward the door every few seconds the way most people would, counting down a countdown they've started themselves. He just sits. Hands folded on the table. The 2 receipts he photographed earlier, his own, and the elderly couple's, from hours ago, lined up in front of him like evidence laid out for a trial that hasn't started yet but absolutely will. Behind the counter, Carla's already moved on. Complaining to Tyler now about a bad Yelp review from last week, some customer who left 1 star over cold fries, entirely unaware that in 22 minutes her entire life is going to fold in on itself in a way 1-star reviews never could. Neither of them notices the black SUV that pulls into the parking lot outside. Neither of them notices the 3 people who step out of it. Harold Wexler, still finishing his coffee 2 booths down, notices. He glances up from his newspaper, watches the SUV park, watches 3 figures in business attire cross the lot, with the particular urgency of people who were told to move fast and didn't ask why. He looks over at Holt. Something in the old man's face shifts. Understanding, maybe. Or just the quiet satisfaction of a person who suspected, somewhere in the back of his mind, that the stranger in the gray hoodie was never quite as ordinary as he looked. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. He simply folds his newspaper, sets it beside his cup, and settles back to watch, because whatever's about to happen in this diner, Harold Wexler has decided he's not leaving, until he sees it through. The bell above the door chimes. And everything Carla Voss and Tyler Briggs have spent the last 11 months building, quietly, carelessly, one stolen $50 at a time, is about to come apart in the time it takes 3 strangers to cross a dining room floor. The bell chimes. 3 figures cross the lot outside, and Carla doesn't look up from her phone yet. Because why would she? Because to her it's just another Tuesday, just another thin trickle of customers, just another shift bleeding toward its end. Except it isn't. The door opens. A man in a gray suit walks in first. Leather briefcase. Fast steps, the kind that don't belong to somebody stopping in for lunch. Behind him, 2 more, a man and a woman, both carrying tablets, both moving like people who were told to hurry and didn't ask why. And behind them, a woman in her mid-30s. Sharp blazer. Steady eyes. The kind of calm that isn't calm at all, it's readiness, coiled tight, waiting. Carla looks up. Her smile switches on. Automatic. The corporate smile. The one she saves for people who look like they matter. Hi, welcome to Weller's. How can I? The man in the gray suit doesn't stop at the counter. Doesn't even glance at her. He walks straight past. Across the dining room. Toward the booth, where the man in the gray hoodie is sitting. He extends his hand. Mr. Weller. I came as fast as I could. The name lands in the room like a dropped plate. Weller. Carla's hand freezes on the register. Her smile doesn't fade, it evaporates. Her lips part. Nothing comes out. Tyler's phone slips from his fingers. Clatters on the counter. His eyes move from the man in the gray suit, to the man in the hoodie, to the photograph on the wall. Vera Weller. Flour-dusted apron. The whitest smile anyone's ever seen. Weller. Holt stands up. Slowly. He removes the baseball cap he's been wearing all afternoon, sets it on the table, straightens his hoodie like a man adjusting a collar he doesn't actually have. He looks at Carla. Then at Tyler. Then he speaks. His voice is calm. Level. Almost soft. Which makes it 10 times worse. My name is Holt Weller. A pause, letting the word settle into the room like dust finally landing, after being kicked into the air. I'm the founder's son. I'm the CEO of Weller's Table. I own this building. I own every building in this chain. All 62 of them. Another pause. Longer this time. And I've been sitting in this booth for the last 2 hours. Watching everything that happens in this restaurant. Nobody moves. The coffee machine gurgles behind the counter. A car passes on the street outside. The fluorescent light overhead buzzes, and every small sound feels enormous now, because the silence around it has gone, so total, so complete, that even the smallest thing seems to shout. Carla's face has gone white. Not pale. White. The blood drained out of it, so fast it looks like she might faint standing up. Her hands grip the counter's edge, knuckles matching the color of her cheeks. Tyler takes a step back. Then another. Like the floor is tilting under him. At 11:45 this morning, Holt continues, I walked through that front door. Neither of you greeted me. One of you told me to get out. The other told me I smelled like a slum. He lets the word sit. I ordered the Vera special. A menu item named after my mother. You charged me $14.50 for an $11.95 plate. The extra $2.55 included a charge that doesn't exist on any menu in this company. A miscellaneous service fee you invented to steal from customers based on the color of their skin. He places both receipts on the counter, side by side. I watched you deny a valid coupon to a black man, while accepting an expired one, from a white woman 2 minutes earlier. A beat. I watched you refuse a free cookie to a 7-year-old boy, while the jar sat half full behind you. Another beat, quieter now, heavier. I watched you humiliate a college student, who was $1.20 short of a meal, while you've been skimming thousands of dollars, from this register for months. Carla opens her mouth. I'm not finished. She closes it. He steps closer to the counter. Looks directly at her. His eyes don't waver. You walk past my mother's photograph every single day. You serve food from recipes she created. You earn a paycheck, from a company she built, with $6,000, and a belief, that every person, who walked through that door deserved to be treated with dignity. His voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. And what did you do with that? You turned her restaurant into a place where people are robbed and humiliated because of how they look. Carla's eyes fill. Her lip trembles. She looks down at the floor. Holt turns to Tyler. You've been here 5 months. 5 months, and you already learned that cruelty is a system. Who to smile at. Who to ignore. Who gets cookies and who doesn't. A pause. That's on her, for teaching you. But it's on you, for choosing to follow. Tyler can't look at him. His eyes fix on a spot on the floor near his own feet. His arms hang at his sides, useless. Holt steps back. He looks at Greg. They're done. 2 words. That's all it takes. And the room cracks open. Carla's mouth starts moving, before her brain can catch up. Wait, sir, I can explain. It was just a joke. We were just talking. We never actually. Greg opens his briefcase. Pulls out a tablet. Register logs. Transaction records. Hundreds of lines from the last 11 months. Every order. Every charge. Every manual adjustment. Every one of them time-stamped. Every one traceable. The data says otherwise, Greg says. Carla's eyes dart across the screen. Her breathing goes shallow. I didn't mean it like that. I swear. It wasn't about race. I was just trying to. Trying to what? Holt asks. She can't finish the sentence. Her mouth opens, and closes, like a fish pulled out of water, and left gasping on a dock. Then something shifts. Her voice cracks. Her eyes fill up for real this time. Please. I have kids. I'm a single mother. I need this job. If I lose this, I don't know what I'm going to. Holt looks at her for a long moment. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet. But every word lands like a hammer. The young woman you turned away 20 minutes ago. The one who was $1.20 short. A pause. She's someone's kid too. Carla's breath catches. The little boy you lied to about the cookies. He's somebody's kid. Another pause, longer. Every customer you stole from. Every person you humiliated in this building. They all have families. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. You didn't think about their kids. You don't get to use yours as a shield. Carla's tears fall openly now. Her shoulders shake. She grips the counter, with both hands just to keep herself standing. Holt doesn't comfort her. He doesn't look away either. He just lets the silence sit there. Heavy. Unforgiving. Somewhere underneath the anger, though, and there is anger, quiet and total, there's something else too. A strange, unwanted flicker of sympathy, that he doesn't examine too closely, because now isn't the time. He knows what it is to be afraid of losing everything. He knows what desperation does to people, how it narrows the world down to survival math, how a person can convince themselves that a small wrong, repeated enough times, stops being wrong at all. He knows it. And he still can't let it stand. Because sympathy for the thief doesn't undo the theft. And understanding why someone breaks doesn't put the thing they broke back together. Tyler hasn't said a word since the reveal. He's pressed himself against the back wall near the kitchen door, face gray, like all the color drained out of him along with his nerve. Holt looks at him. Tyler flinches. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "She told me that's how things were done here, and you went along with it," Holt finishes. "For 5 months, you didn't ask a question. You didn't report it. You didn't stop. You chose to follow." Tyler's chin drops to his chest. He has nothing left to say. Holt turns to Greg. "Terminate both of them. Effective immediately. For cause. Document everything, the discriminatory behavior, the fraudulent charges, the customer complaints. All of it." Greg nods. Pulls 2 termination letters from his briefcase. Sets them on the counter. Company letterhead at the top. Blank signature line at the bottom. "Sign here," Greg says. "Your final paychecks will be mailed. You're no longer authorized to be on this property." Carla signs with a trembling hand. She can barely read what she's signing, through the tears blurring her eyes. Tyler signs without looking up. But Holt isn't finished. Because a promise made to a dying woman doesn't end with 2 signatures on a termination letter. It's bigger than that. It has to be bigger than that, or it isn't really a promise at all. "Greg. I want a full audit of this register going back 11 months. Every transaction. Cross-referenced with customer payment records." He pauses. "Every person who was charged that fake fee gets a full refund. A written apology from corporate. And a $50 gift card. Every single one. No exceptions." Greg types it into his tablet. "Done. And file a report with the Westerville Police Department." Holt's voice doesn't waver. What happened here isn't just a policy violation. It's theft. It's fraud. And it was targeted by race. I want it on record." Greg nods again. "I'll have it filed by end of day. Except there's one more thing. Because the data that came back an hour ago is still sitting in Holt's phone, and it's the part of this that has nothing to do with Carla or Tyler at all." He turns to Greg. Lowers his voice, just slightly, not for privacy exactly, but because what he's about to say carries a different weight than everything before it. "I need to talk to you about location 31. Greg's expression shifts. Something careful crosses his face. "What about it?" "The same charge pattern started there about a month ago. Small amounts. Surgical. Same targeting." Holt watches him closely. "A cashier who trained here briefly transferred, over not long, before it started." Greg's jaw tightens. He doesn't answer right away. Which tells Holt something all by itself. "Did anyone flag this before today?" Holt asks. Quiet. Direct. A long pause. "There was a complaint," Greg finally admits. "About 6 weeks ago. A customer emailed corporate about a fee they didn't recognize. It got logged. He stops. Starts again. It didn't get escalated. The numbers were small. It fell through the cracks." Holt stares at him. "Because there it is. The thing underneath the thing. Not just 2 people willing to steal, but a system careless enough that a real complaint could disappear into an inbox and never surface again, so long as nobody made the noise loud enough to force a second look. Whose desk did that complaint land on? Holt asks. Greg doesn't answer immediately. He doesn't have to. Holt already knows. He's known Greg for 11 years. Trusted him with more than payroll. And now he's standing in a diner that used to belong entirely to his mother's memory, learning that the rot didn't start with a cashier. It started somewhere higher, in someone's inbox, in a decision to look away, because a handful of complaints didn't seem worth the trouble of chasing down. We'll talk about this, Holt says. Low. Final. Later. Not here. Greg nods. Doesn't argue. Because there's nothing to argue. Carla is escorted to the door by one of the compliance officers. She doesn't look back. Tyler follows a few steps behind, head down, hands stuffed in his pockets. The bell above the door chimes, as they walk out. The same bell that chimed when Holt walked in, 2 hours earlier. The diner is quiet now. Just Holt, Greg, the compliance team, and Yolanda Price, who's been standing near the entrance this entire time, watching everything unfold in silence. She's black. Mid-30s. Shift supervisor from location number 9. Employee of the year, 2 years running. The kind of manager who remembers every regular's name and every kid's favorite cookie flavor without needing to ask twice. Holt turns to her. Yolanda. This location needs a new manager. Someone who understands why we opened these doors in the first place. He pauses. Someone who remembers that this company was built on one idea. That every person who walks in deserves to be treated like they matter. Another pause. That's you. Yolanda presses her lips together. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't cry. She nods once. Firm. Steady. I won't let you down, Mr. Weller. I know you won't. He glances at the photograph on the wall. Still crooked. Still dusty. First thing tomorrow morning, he says, clean that frame. Straighten it. Put fresh flowers next to it, if you want. A pause. She deserves better than what she's been getting in this building. Yolanda looks at the photograph. Nods again. Softer this time. Yes, sir. First thing. Holt lingers a moment longer than he needs to, looking at the diner one last time, before he leaves, the checkered floor, the vinyl booths, the pass-through window, where Denzel is watching, quietly, from the kitchen. Holt catches his eye. Nods once. A small thing. A private acknowledgement between two men, who both, in their own way, refuse to let this day end the way it started. Denzel nods back. Neither of them says a word. They don't need to. 2 weeks pass. Because the story doesn't end in a dining room. Stories like this never do. What happens after the confrontation, that's the part most people never see, and it's also the part that matters most. Greg assembles a 5-person audit team at corporate headquarters in downtown Columbus. Their job, pull every register log, every transaction receipt, every manual override, from location 14, going back 11 months. Then do the same for all 61 other locations. What they find is worse than anyone expected. Location 14 was the epicenter. Over 11 months, Carla Voss had added fraudulent service charges to more than 4,000 individual transactions. Tyler Briggs added roughly 1,800 more in his 5 months. Combined total, over $8,000 in phantom fees, skimmed almost entirely, from Black and Latino customers, a figure far larger than either of them had realized, buried in small increments neither had bothered to add up in full. The pattern is surgical. Precise. White customers were never charged the fee. Not once. The overcharges only appeared during shifts, when Carla or Tyler worked the register. On days when other employees covered, the charges vanished completely. And location 31, the second site, confirms exactly what Holt suspected. The same method. The same targeting. A skill carried from one building to another like something learned in an apprenticeship nobody wrote down, but everybody understood. Greg presents the findings in the corporate boardroom. Spreadsheets on the screen. Graphs showing the spike in fees that began the month Carla was hired. A color-coded map of every affected transaction across 2 locations. Holt sits at the head of the table. Stares at the numbers for a long time. The room stays silent. Then he speaks. This is a failure of oversight. A pause. Mine included. I should have caught this sooner. We all should have. He doesn't deflect. Doesn't point fingers at middle management, and stop there. He looks directly at the section of the report detailing the ignored complaint, from 6 weeks earlier. The one that landed on a desk, and went nowhere. I want to know exactly how a customer complaint about fraudulent charges sat unescalated for 6 weeks, he says. I want names. I want a timeline. And I want a new policy, effective this week, where any complaint alleging discrimination or fraud triggers an automatic review, within 48 hours. No exceptions. No excuse is good enough to justify looking away. Nobody argues. Because there's nothing left to argue. The Westerville Police Department opens a formal fraud investigation, within 72 hours of Greg's report. Detectives pull security footage. Review register access logs. Interview 6 former customers, who confirm they were charged fees they didn't recognize, but never questioned, because who questions $1.50 on a receipt, when you're just trying to get through your lunch break? Carla Voss is charged with 12 counts of misdemeanor theft. 4 counts of fraud. Her lawyer tries to negotiate a quiet plea deal, community service, a fine, the kind of resolution that lets a person's life stay mostly intact. The district attorney rejects it. Because the pattern is too clean. Too deliberate. Every victim a person of color. Every single one. That isn't carelessness. That's a system, built by one person, and taught to another, and the DA's office refers the case to the state attorney general for review, as a potential civil rights violation. 6 weeks later, Carla stands in a courtroom. Wrinkled blazer. Eyes swollen. Tissue clutched in one hand. Her lawyer argues financial hardship. A clean prior record. A single mother trying to make ends meet in an economy that doesn't make ends meet easy for anybody. The judge listens. Then he speaks. 18 months of supervised probation. 200 hours of mandatory community service, to be served at a food bank in the same neighborhood, where she stole from her customers. Full restitution. Every dollar. Paid in monthly installments. A permanent criminal record that will follow her through every background check for the rest of her working life. When the sentence is read, Carla sobs. Not quietly. The kind of crying that bends a person in half. Her lawyer puts a hand on her shoulder. Nobody else in the courtroom moves. Tyler Briggs cooperates from day one. Provides a full written statement confirming that Carla created the scheme, trained him to execute it, assured him they'd never be caught. His cooperation earns reduced charges, 2 counts of misdemeanor theft instead of 12. Not dismissed. Reduced. He receives 12 months of probation. 100 hours of community service. Full restitution of the $1,500 he took. The story doesn't stay contained to a courtroom either. A local Columbus television station breaks it first. The headline crawls across the bottom of the screen during the 6 o'clock news. Undercover CEO discovers employees charging hidden fee at family diner chain. Within 24 hours, it goes regional. Within 48, national. News outlets across the country pick it up. Social media erupts. A hashtag trends for 3 straight days. People share their own stories, thousands of them, about being overcharged, followed, treated differently at checkout counters in restaurants and stores they'd trusted their whole lives. The hashtag becomes a mirror. And what it reflects is something millions of people have felt, but never quite had the words for. Holt does one interview. Just one. A sit-down with a local journalist. No publicist standing off camera. No teleprompter. No prepared statement written by somebody else. He wears a simple dark suit. Sits across from the reporter and speaks plainly. My mother believed a meal is dignity. You walk through the door. You sit down. You're served with respect. You leave full. A pause. That was her promise to every customer. It's printed on every menu we have. And what happened at location 14 was a betrayal of that promise. Not just by 2 employees. By a system that allowed it to go unnoticed for almost a year. He looks directly into the camera. That's on all of us. That's on me. The clip is viewed over 9 million times in its first week. Holt doesn't stop at accountability. He rebuilds. Within 30 days, Weller's Table rolls out a company-wide reform package, the most comprehensive in the chain's history. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for every employee at every location, updated quarterly, no exceptions, no delays. An anonymous customer feedback system, wired directly to corporate headquarters, bypassing local managers entirely. Any complaint alleging discriminatory treatment triggers an automatic investigation, within 48 hours, the same standard Holt demanded in the boardroom weeks earlier, now written into policy for good. New receipt auditing software installed across all 62 locations. Any manual charge that doesn't match an existing menu item gets flagged in real time. If an employee tries to add something that isn't in the system, corporate gets a notification before the receipt is even printed. And at the center of it all, a program called Vera's Promise. Any customer, at any Weller's Table location, who experiences or witnesses discriminatory treatment receives a free meal, a formal written apology, and an immediate corporate investigation. Printed on every menu. Posted on every wall. Featured on the company website, front and center. Holt personally visits all 62 locations, over the next 90 days. Not in disguise this time. In a suit. With his name on his chest, same as it always was, except now every employee he meets knows exactly who's sitting across from them. He sits down with every manager. Every shift lead. Every cashier. Tells them what happened at location 14. Tells them about his mother. Tells them, plainly, what this company was built to stand for, and what it will no longer tolerate standing for anything less. Not one employee looks away while he speaks. 6 months later, location 14 looks like a different place. The checkered floor is the same. The red vinyl booths are the same. But something's changed, something you feel the moment you walk in, before you can name it. Laughter. Real laughter. Silverware clinking. Kids talking with their mouths full, nobody rushing them to finish and clear out. Yolanda Price stands behind the register in a pressed Weller's Table polo. She greets every customer by name, if she knows it. And by welcome home, if she doesn't. Customer satisfaction scores at location 14 are now the highest in the entire chain. Not by a little. By a lot. And there, right beside the entrance, the photograph of Vera Weller. Centered. Polished. Fresh flowers in a small vase beneath it, replaced every Monday morning without fail. Amara Johnson works here now. 3 shifts a week, saving for textbooks and tuition. Yolanda hired her the week after taking over, and mentored her personally ever since. She's fast, kind, remembers every kid's name, after hearing it once. She keeps the cookie jar full at all times. Never lets it drop below half. Denzel Ford still works the grill, except now he trains new hires, because Yolanda made sure the man, who quietly told the truth on the worst day of this restaurant's history, never has to wonder again whether speaking up was worth it. On a Tuesday morning in early spring, a black Mercedes pulls into the parking lot. No disguise. No hoodie. Holt Weller steps out in a dark suit. Walks through the front door. The bell chimes, the same bell, the same sound it's made 1,000 times before, in 1,000 ordinary mornings, that led, somehow, to this one. Yolanda sees him from across the room. Doesn't shake his hand. She hugs him. A real one. Welcome back, Mr. Weller. Good to be back, Yolanda. He sits in the same booth. The one closest to the counter. The same seat where he spent 2 hours, months ago, watching everything fall apart, before it could finally be put back together. He orders the Vera special. It arrives in 4 minutes. Fried chicken, golden and crisp. Collard greens. Cornbread with butter melting into it. Coffee with a lid this time. And a cookie on a small napkin, set beside the plate, without him even asking. Amara brings it to his table. Smiles. On the house, Mr. Weller. Holt reaches into his jacket pocket. Pulls out the laminated photograph. Vera Weller, flour-dusted apron, the widest smile he's ever known. He sets it on the table. Right next to his plate. He eats slowly. No phone. No notebook. No checklist this time. Just a man, sitting across from a photograph of his mother, eating the meal she invented, in the restaurant she built, with 6,000 borrowed dollars, and a belief that never once wavered, even when the world around her gave her every reason to let it. For the first time in this entire story, Holt smiles. Not a polite smile. Not a tired one. A full, unguarded, deep-in-the-chest kind of smile. The kind his mother used to wear. The front door chimes again. A young black man walks in, early 20s, hands in his pockets, looking around the dining room like he isn't quite sure he's allowed to be here. Yolanda's voice rings out, before he can hesitate another second, welcoming him in, telling him to sit anywhere he likes, and the young man relaxes, smiles, finds a booth by the window. Holt watches from his seat, nods to himself, slowly, quietly, and picks up the photograph one last time, pressing his thumb across his mother's face, before tucking it back into his pocket. He leaves a $100 bill on the table, no note, no name, and walks out the door, into the spring light, the bell chiming softly behind him. Because that's the thing about small cruelties. They survive longer than the big ones. Not because nobody sees them, but because people see them every day, and decide, quietly, that they're not worth the trouble of fixing. The eye roll at the register. The coupon that suddenly won't scan. The smile that disappears the moment certain people walk through the door. Those things don't survive because nobody notices. They survive because nobody speaks. Holt didn't scream. Didn't make a scene. He sat down. Watched. Documented. And when the time came, he acted, not with anger, but with the kind of clarity that only comes from carrying a promise long enough to know exactly what it's worth. You don't need to own 62 restaurants to do what he did. You just need to decide that silence isn't something you're comfortable with anymore.